was just pure fucking cringe. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was just cringe, guys.
Companies in the world, which might sound kind of strange. How could the company behind Mickey Mouse, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, Aladdin and Frozen possibly be evil? I mean, Disney was everyone's childhood. We would watch their films and be inspired by their beauty and elegance. Even today, our favorite films are from Disney. In fact, in 2020, 7 of the top 10 highest grossing films were made by Disney. But trust me when I say that Disney isn't the company that you think it is. Disney is a ruthless monopoly, a monopoly that is dominating the entire media landscape, owning Marvel, Pixar, Lucasfilms, 20th Century Fox,
Monopoly,
the History Channel, ESPN, and just so many more, homogenizing the world's creativity. They are also one of the 6 companies that have consolidated control of nearly all American media, and they are run by a ruthless, faceless executives, squeezing every penny they can from our childhood nostalgia. It's gotten to a point now where Disney is so ruthless for money that they even threaten to sue the parents of a dead child for putting Spider-Man on their 4-year-old's grave. All because they were ruining, quote, the innocence and magic of their characters. All so that Disney can get every penny possible. It's why Disney removes black people from their posters in China. It's why the company apologizes for mentioning Taiwan and praises the government officials committing a genocide as we speak. And with their recent movies like Lightyear failing to break even and flopping at the box office, it seems like Disney is now on a downward spiral, with their stock price going from almost $200 a share to $95 a share. Something has gone very wrong for Disney. This isn't the same company we grew up with. Somewhere something went drastically wrong, and after spending countless hours trying to figure this out, trust me when I say that the story of Disney is a rabbit hole.
Okay, tell me.
But before we continue, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Galaxy Lamps. The Galaxy Allies back in December 5th. Use my special discount code MOON to get 50. The story of Disney begins back in December 5th, 1901, when a man named Walter Elias Disney was born. Walt was a gifted artist and drew regularly throughout his childhood, with some of the cartoons being showcased in military newspapers during World War I. But back then, Walt understood that drawings wouldn't make him rich. He was unemployed and there were just so many cartoon artists across the world, it was almost impossible to stand out. So how could Walt become rich while selling cartoons? This seemed near impossible, because drawing cartoons alone wasn't going to be enough. So Walt had to think outside of the box, and that was when Walt noticed the growing industry of animation. Back then, the main animations involved stop motion with objects, puppets, clay or cutouts, and drawn or painted animations. After noticing the untapped industry of drawn animations, Walt would begin to go all in on animation, partnering up with fellow artist Ub Iwerks, a man who would soon become his partner and close friend. At the start, Walt and Ub ended up doing cutout commercials for the Kansas City Film Ad Company. They later considered starting a new business that would draw cartoons for a local theater, an idea which ended up becoming Walt's first company, Laugh-O-Gram Studios. Although this venture didn't work out too well and went bust in just a couple of years, it was this failure that left Walt even more determined to succeed, and so he left for Missouri for Hollywood, saving nothing for the swim back, bringing with him just a 12.5-minute film he and Ub were working on. This film was called Alice's Wonderland, and to their luck, the short film was purchased, resulting in the creation of their new company on October 16th, 1923, the Walt Disney Company. The initial business was a joint partnership between Walt and his brother Roy Disney. In less than 3 years, Disney had produced 2 movies and even purchased their own studio in Hollywood. A few years later in 1927, and Disney created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, who was one of their first cartoon characters to ever have a personality. As outlined by Walt himself, quote, "Hereafter we will aim to make Oswald a young character, peppy, alert, saucy, and venturesome, keeping him also neat and trim." With Oswald, Walt began to explore the concept of personality animation, in which cartoon characters were defined as individuals through their movements, mannerisms, and acting, instead of simply by their design. Walt had expressed, quote, "I want the characters to be somebody. I don't want them to just be a drawing." In order to make his Oswald cartoons look real, Disney turned away from the stars of Felix the Cat, Coco the Clown, Crazy Cat, and Julius the Cat, and began emulating the camera angles, effects, and editing of live-action films at the time, because Walt didn't want his new character to simply just be a prop for gags. Instead, he explained that his intention was to make, quote, "Oswald peculiarly and typically Oswald." And by doing this with Oswald, Walt was creating groundbreaking innovation in animation, and would soon go on to change the course of animated cartoons forever. However, other people were noticing this and wanted a piece of the pie themselves. And that's why in 1928, Walt was faced with disaster. Because while Oswald was successful, it was this success that would actually bring down Walt. Because when Disney wanted to negotiate a larger fee for producing the Oswald series, the film producer Charles Mintz wanted to instead reduce payments. Mintz had also persuaded many of the artists working for Disney to actually work for himself. Mintz actually threatened to start his own studio and produce the series himself if Disney refused to bow down to the threat, causing him to lose most of his animation crew and the money for the project. Disney was now back at rock bottom. He had to create something big and fast in order to keep the company afloat. And luckily, Walt did have a trick up his sleeve. During this heated period between Vince and Walt had created Mickey Mouse. The mouse was created privately while Disney completed the Oswald cartoons. He did this to hide away from Charles Mintz, as he never trusted the film producer, even though by creating Mickey Mouse, he was breaking the contract. At the time, Disney was commissioning Ub Iwerks to begin developing a new character concept. This was a stressful time because Disney didn't like any of the concepts. All the designs of different animals, including dogs and cats, just weren't appealing. But that was, apart from one, Mickey Mouse. So Disney went through with the production of Mickey Mouse in private, with the character actually being voiced by Walt Disney himself. Following the principles of personality animation that he originally learned through his Oswald character, Walt's artistic style made Mickey one of the world's most recognizable fictional characters. His first debut in Steamboat Willie was an immediate sensation and led to Disney's dominance in the animated market for many years. Not long after, Disney started introducing many other well-known characters, including Minnie Mouse, Goofy, and Donald Duck, and it seemed like everything was turning for Walt. His empire was expanding, his cartoons internationally recognized, he'd grown his team enormously and his growth had far overtaken Mintz's. He seemed to have gotten the perfect revenge, but behind this golden surface was an impending disaster, with Walt being betrayed by the distributor for Mickey Mouse, Pat Powers. You see, Pat had gotten Walt to sign a dodgy contract with Universal Pictures, where they would take the vast amount of profits from Mickey Mouse, leaving Walt feeling underpaid. And at the same time, Pat would then convince Walt's close partner Ub Iwerks, the guy who designed Mickey Mouse, the guy central to Disney's success, to now abandon Disney. With Walt being betrayed and losing his close partner, he would go on to have a nervous breakdown. With all this stress and turmoil, he decided to take a break abroad in Cuba with his wife. But this break would do wonders for Disney. Restoring his mental health, ambition, and team, he returned a few years later in 1931 to sign Disney into a contract with Columbia Pictures, allowing Disney to now distribute their cartoons in Technicolor. This new color technique would be used in their Silly Symphony series, allowing Disney to win its first Academy Award for Best Cartoon in 1932.
Oh, wow.
And the experience they gained with color animations and the increase in funds led them to start working on their first full-length film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When they released this film in 1938, it would go on to become the highest.
I feel like everybody says something and he says, but then, and then I feel like he says like, but then China is spying on you because, dude,
grossing film
I don't know what it is.
Time. But once again, big challenges were just around the corner.
This guy's videos, man.
In 1939, World War II began, disrupting the world economy irreparably, and Disney was feeling the impact. Because while Disney was reeling on the success of Snow White, the studio was producing Pinocchio in early 1938, along with Fantasia in November of the same year. Both of these films were then released in 1940, and neither performed well at the box office. Not because the films were bad, but because the European market had vanished. No one was going to the cinema to watch Disney films when bombs were hailing across the continent, which is why the studio made a loss in both pictures and was deeply in debt by the end of February 1941. In response to this financial crisis, Disney and his brother Roy would take the company public, and to please their new investors, Disney would have to take drastic measures that would include massive salary cuts, which would eventually cause an animator strike in 1941, which would go on for 5 weeks, crippling the company even more. The only way Disney was really making money anymore was through its anti-German and anti-Japanese propaganda films for the US military. However, by scraping the barrel for money, Disney managed to survive the war, and was then able to start focusing on original material once again. They initially found it difficult to pick up where it had left off, but 1950 proved to be a turning point, thanks to the success of their first live-action film, Treasure Island. Because of the success, Disney now had more money to launch several television series, with their first one, Mickey Mouse Club, making its debut in 1955. And again, this was an even bigger hit, with the 50s being the absolute golden years for Disney. And with all their mountain successes in this period, Disney would open their first theme park in California. Throughout this entire stretch, there seemed to be no issues. Everything they were producing was a massive hit. They were gaining worldwide recognition, and Disney would seem unstoppable. But after more than a decade of major successes, again something devastating would happen to the Disney company. On November 30th, 1966, Walt Disney would die as a result of his ongoing lung cancer complications, meaning his brother Roy Disney would take over the business. Although in less than 5 years, the investors wanted him to be replaced, causing the Disney family to be succeeded by an executive team in 1971, marking the end of the family name's leadership in the company, and would also mark a major shift in Disney's future. Out were the days of handmade original Disney productions, in was the corporatized, hollowed out Disney. The focus now? Make as much money as humanly possible. And so in the following decades, Disney would start taking advantage of merchandising opportunities, it would produce more feature films, and construct numerous projects around the globe, including their first international theme park in Tokyo during 1983. And whilst everything did look good on the surface, the company was noticeably different after Walt's death. You see, during the early 1980s, American movie making was changing. Audiences were just less interested in the family films that had been the mainstay of Disney for many years, and the company was just now not meeting the standards of their competition. Disney's competition was making films garner towards the prolific teenage and adult markets, something that Disney couldn't catch up with. And at the same time, because of the widespread perception that Disney stock was undervalued relative to the company's assets, there were several hostile takeover attempts of the company. And so to strengthen Disney from this assault, shareholders brought in Michael Eisner as the new CEO. And this is when Disney completely changed, because unlike most higher-ups currently working there, Michael Eisner was the first well-connected Hollywood executive who would bring the company back
and then say BlackRock
into the mainstream. Shortly after joining Disney, Eisner realized that the company was sitting on an untapped goldmine of intellectual property that could easily be modernized for their own standalone films. And so from 1989 to 1994, Disney would enter a renaissance era, launching classics such as The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, which would go on to revive the company and bring back modern audiences massively. And with the rise in its audience share, the more people that would visit Disney's theme parks. However, this streak wouldn't last that long. In the mid-1990s, Eisner started making very questionable business decisions that made others doubt his ability to carry out his position as CEO. For example, long jealous of Tokyo's Disneyland riches and frustrated by being left out of the profits, Eisner vowed to create a new international resort in Paris. He saw this as the mechanism that would further catapult Disney's success. However, at the start, this international resort was a total disaster. Disneyland Paris lost the company a ton of money and brought it into major financial trouble. And because of this, investors were pulling out of Disney. And so because of Disneyland Paris's failure to make money, Eisner would begin making dramatic reductions in theme park spending, which would of course impact the constructions of new parks, as well as the maintenance, cleanliness and safety of the already existing parks. This would then go on to cause Disney even more troubles, and this was seen in 1998. While a couple was waiting to board the sailing ship Columbia, one of the tamest rides at Disneyland, the 34-year-old man and his wife were struck in the head by a huge piece of metal flung from the ship. The steel was intended to secure the ship to the dock, but instead it was violently torn from the hull and thrown into the throng, killing the man and disfiguring his wife, becoming one of—
Dude, we heard about this. You know when the ships, when things stretch or whatever, remember with the rope thing? They say to never be in the cone of a rope or something that's under tension. Remember the thing? Guys, dude, how do you have the links always ready, man? How, man? Oh no, not this.
Section of loose line can injure or
and this one
kill if the line suddenly tightens.
Chat, I'm not kidding, we might actually save one life today. We will save somebody's life today.
These hazards are commonly known as bites. People working near bites need to watch feet and hand placement. Never stand in the bite of a line. Allow a body part to be caught in the bite, or stand near a line that's coming under tension. Pinch points are created where lines meet fixed objects or other lines under tension.
It's important.
The extreme force of a taut line over a metal fitting can catch and crush fingers and hands, toes and feet. Be especially aware of loose gloves or clothing which can be caught at a pinch point. Snapback is potentially the most deadly of all line handling hazards. No. A worn line, the wrong line, or a line under too much tension can part, snap back, and recoil, striking anything in its path with tremendous force. Always avoid the snapback zone.
The snapback zone. You don't want to be caught in that.
Path of a parted line. A best practice is to paint the snapback zones on the deck plating as a reminder. Snapped lines which are wrapped around a lead under tension can be even more deadly, since they can swing around the lead in a larger arc, increasing the snapback zone.
Boom!
And snapped lines traveling at the velocity of rifle shots can also bounce and ricochet off solid surfaces, killing on the rebound too.
No joke. So I think this is kind of what happened, no?
Disneyland. The 34-year-old man and his wife were struck in the head by a huge piece of metal flung from the ship. The steel was intended to secure the ship to the dock, but instead it was violently torn from the hull and thrown into the throng, killing the man and disfiguring his wife.
That's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. It went under tension because the boat was probably rising or something like that, and it snapped,
becoming one of the most abhorrent events in the history of theme parks, all because of Eisner pulling out funds for the parks, highlighting just how drastically the Disney company had turned under the leadership of Michael Eisner. The man who saved Walt Disney was now making one bad decision after another. There were many other blunders from Eisner as well, like Disney's failed attempt at an AOL-style internet portal, which would become an embarrassing joke for the company, not to mention all the regular infighting amongst executive staff, and eventually the straw that broke the camel's back, appointing his friend Michael Ovitz as president of the company. By causing this decline in Disney's reputation, along with pushing investors out of the company, Disney's executive team was forced to fire Eisner and pay him $140 million to finally remove him from the CEO position. The whole debacle was a complete disaster for Disney, both financially as well as in the eyes of the public. Once Eisner was gone in 2005, Bob Iger, a former weatherman, took over the role of CEO. And this would seemingly be a great move for Disney, as after intense negotiations between Bob Iger and Steve Jobs, Disney would go on to purchase its biggest competitor, Pixar. This was mainly because Pixar was taking away a huge part of Disney's market share, releasing huge films like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, and The Incredibles. And while this was happening under Eisner's reign, Disney was losing its popularity. The public seemingly wanted Pixar more than Disney, but with Pixar now under the Disney umbrella, the market was completely under Disney's control, going on to produce more and more 3D animated films, with films such as Moana and Coco. But Disney wouldn't stop there, because in 2009, Disney later bought Marvel Studios, which was one of the first of many acquisitions that would increase Disney's monopoly of the entertainment industry. And this was Disney's new strategy. Instead of focusing on their own content, Disney would just buy out all its competition. And that's why over the last 10 years, the business tactics of Bob Iger have resulted in Disney cornering the entire entertainment industry. Disney has since bought a slew of major studios, television stations, and intellectual properties, including Lucasfilms, ABC, ESPN, 21st Century Fox, and just way too many other things to list off in this video. I mean, it's literally gotten to a point now that many are calling for Disney to be broken up due to ongoing monopoly concerns. And so with all this backstory in mind, you might start to notice a trend. Most of the defining moments of Disney are during leadership changes. And that's why it's important we talk about Disney's new CEO, Bob Chapek. Bob Chapek comes from a retail background and is known for cutting costs, placing an emphasis on merchandise at the expense of media. Disney investors and the executives want Chapek to make more profits, which isn't a major shock. But what more can Disney do when it's cornered the entire US market? There's nothing else to control. It's getting harder and harder for Disney to expand. It's conquered the European, Latin American, and American markets. And so with this in mind, it shouldn't be any surprise that Disney has now been further expanding their relationship with China, whilst also trying to please its biggest investors like BlackRock by pandering to their political beliefs, causing Disney's content in recent years to take a much weird turn, and the results of this have become very apparent in just the last couple of years. In recent years, Disney has been forced to pander heavily to their investors. With their new cost-cutting ruthless executives, Disney is doing everything it can to maintain its growth. And this behavior has been going on for a few years now. However, you'd think by doing this sort of thing that it would be a PR disaster for the company. And yet, they haven't really stopped. In fact, the company has become even more morally bankrupt. For example, they've become so desperate to squeeze even more money that they actually refused grieving parents to put a picture of Spider-Man on their 4-year-old's grave. All because Disney wanted to, quote, preserve the magic and innocence of its characters, unless of course the father paid them a handsome fee. However, trust me, this is only the start here, because Disney is unironically supporting genocide in China. You see, behind closed doors in Hollywood, nearly every producer has to regularly self-censor their content, all in an effort to appease the Chinese government, and Disney is no exception. Due to China's massive 1.4 billion population, that equates to a ton of money, and so movie companies want to be sure to tap into the Chinese market. And with China's limited movie output, it means Western companies like Disney will have little competition. But there's a catch. China only allows 34 foreign films to be shown in the country annually. So not only is the competition huge amongst American movie companies, it's even fiercer when factoring all the movie companies around the world that want to tap into the Chinese market. And so for your movie to be chosen for screening, you have to make sure it's absolutely squeaky clean for the Chinese censors, which means removing any negative depictions of China, but it also means you have to praise China. You have to be as non-threatening as possible. And these requirements don't just apply to the films being released. No, this involves all the production team. If these rules are broken by the actors, producers, or distributors, or anyone else, they will all be banned from the country without a second thought, causing these giant movie companies to lose billions of dollars. Disney figured this out firsthand when they distributed a film about Tibetan oppression from the Chinese called Kundun, which temporarily got the company blacklisted from China. To revert this ban, the then CEO had to profusely apologize and even hired the former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, to prevent a total fallout with the country. After this incident, Disney had to jump through so many hoops just to get back in China's good books, which included buying multiple Chinese film distribution rights, hiring Chinese performance groups, and making plans to open a theme park in Shanghai. And Disney has since scrubbed all their involvement with the film. And as you may have guessed, this was when Eisner was CEO. He said, quote, "The bad news is that the film was made. The good news is that nobody watched it. I want to apologize, and in the future we should prevent this sort of thing, which insults our Chinese friends." In addition to the talks of genocide perpetuated by China being forbidden, there can also be no mention of Taiwan at all in Hollywood. I mean, just to give an example of how strict the rules are when it comes to any reference of the country, Top Gun Maverick is now facing a ban in China because of a single shot containing a Taiwanese patch on the protagonist's jacket. This was after the film distributor Paramount Pictures refused to cater to the CCP's demands, saying they would not edit the flag out. But on the other side of the coin, refusing such orders from China is something Disney would never even dream of. China is their main market now. I mean, just look at the disaster of a film called Mulan, which was supposed to be an easy slam dunk remake of the 1998 original, which turned out to be a financial and public embarrassment for the company, both in their Western and Chinese audience. Despite the movie's blatant pandering to the CCP, it's still...
Guys, I enjoyed the movie, the animated movie back in the days, but people said that there's a problem with the movies or whatnot. What was the implications of the problem with the movies or whatnot? It was awful. No, it's not. I used to watch it on loop, man. It's racist. Live action. No. I mean, not the remake. I mean the old one, the animated one.
Bombed at the premiere in China and lost $130 million at the box office. In addition, Disney quite distastefully gave thanks during the end credits of the film to 8 government entities in Xinjiang for allowing them to film there. And for those who don't know, this is the same region as the ongoing Uyghur genocide in China.
From Chinese police computers show that Uyghur prisoners in the western region of Xinjiang are shot on...
Dude, one of my first gamer tags ever, I tried it, there wasn't enough space in it. I wanted to be called, my first gamer tag, I wanted to be called Mulan one day, Mulan forever. I don't know why, but it was like in French it sounds better. It's like a quote or some
if
shit.
they're caught trying to escape.
I know it sounds dumb.
Thousands of photos shed light on a secretive system of mass incarceration.
Yes, Disney is quite literally praising the people committing genocide in China.
Yeah, because I'm translating it, so it sounds kind of bad. Because in French it's Moulin un jour, Moulin toujours. It's kind of cool.
However, Disney's pandering to China's authoritarian regime doesn't just stop there. Just look at the comparison of their box art for Star Wars The Force Awakens in the West and in China. They literally had to remove John Bottger to cater to the Chinese government's demands.
That is
and it was
not...
the same thing with the Black Panther movie,
fucked.
where they had to completely cover the protagonist's face on the Chinese version of the poster, which is funny considering that...
What the fuck?
Had to completely cover the protagonist's face on the Chinese version of the poster. Which is funny considering that back at home, Disney's very happy to hand out the white privilege checklist to their employees, along with an internal program with a series of training modules about anti-racism. I mean, Disney's always lecturing their workers about how they must not, quote, question black colleagues' lived experiences and challenge colorblind ideologies and rhetoric, whilst also having staff recommended reading material including things like 75 things white people can do for racial justice, and your kids are not too young to talk about race. However, meanwhile, they censor black people from their movie posters and actively support a government committing genocide that also carries out racial segregation. And yet Disney's former CEO Bob Iger stated that the company should be, quote, taking a stand on political issues and that it will no longer shy away from politics in the future. A statement that's also likely caused by another sinister bureaucratic
This is surprising, they're just maximizing their profits. Yeah, but there's a difference between maximizing profits and maximizing profits at a cost. Especially when the cost is like that. That's not a good cost.
Authoritarian regime, BlackRock. BlackRock is one of Disney's top shareholders, owning nearly 150 million shares in the company. Now, for those of you who don't know, BlackRock is the shadowy investment management firm that oversees roughly 10% of all stocks traded worldwide, which amounts to about $10 trillion in assets. In the words of Bloomberg, BlackRock is effectively a fourth branch of government.
Boy, bingo cards, boy. Bingo. Ding, 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 ding. Moon said BlackRock.
And with BlackRock's
He
founder and
did it
CEO
again.
Larry Fink's personal connections with the former Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, BlackRock has been able to control multiple major banks, with Larry Fink largely being regarded as the most powerful man in America. And because of this, most investors and banks follow BlackRock's ESG ratings to know whether or not they should put their funds into a company. Now, an ESG rating, according to BlackRock, measures a company's exposure to long-term environmental and governance risks. These risks include things like energy efficiency, worker safety, and board independence, all of which will cause companies to have significant financial consequences if they're not followed properly. However, in 2018, this ESG score was modified when Larry wrote a letter telling all the companies under his thumb to, quote, contribute to society or risk losing our support, adding that
Wait, it's the same script again.
company giving their input on the way grade school education is handled in the state of Florida. Disney has never done anything like this before. This
Yeah, I
is
think this guy learned about this ESG thing, and now his brain's like he thinks like red pilled out the wazoo, and just copy pasting
only
everything.
happening after BlackRock changing their ESG rating.
Is
But
the
their
truth?
strict adherence
Yeah, but then you're gonna say that about you're gonna say that about all companies. Then you're gonna say that, okay, but this, okay, this could be for a lot of reasons and a lot of things that can be explained, or I could just say it's because of the ESG and BlackRock because they're above everybody else. So it's like, okay, well, at that point, I mean, just fucking spam it on all companies and use it as a fucking narrative for everything. Like what?
this ESG rating is causing Disney to now be faced with even bigger challenges, as it looks like the Disney company is currently taking some big financial hits. While Paramount Pictures claims they won't bow down to China or ESG scores, releasing Top Gun Maverick free from censorship, Paramount Pictures is now seeing huge success.
Okay, why did I watch this video? Well, as you know, Twitch is owned by Amazon. Amazon, ESG, BlackRock. And watching this video actually helps my ESG score because I was tanking because of GTA and shit like that. I was 2 points off. So by watching this video, obviously because of Amazon, because of Twitch, and because of BlackRock, we're watching this, and now we're kind of see, like,
with Top
dude,
Gun
like,
Maverick
come
cracking
on,
over
man.
$1 billion box office worldwide. A film that entertained audiences worldwide. A film that refused to denounce
And also because China. It's China. Because what? BlackRock, China, BlackRock, China, BlackRock.
Taiwan and, quote,
Boom.
toxic
I said it.
masculinity. It's a film that just isn't political. And at the same time, Disney's $200 million budget Lightyear film gained only $150 million in sales. Because yet again, it was Disney's attempt at stuffing corporate wokeness down their audience's throats. And right now, Disney's stock price is plummeting, going from $200 down to only $90, becoming more and more dependent on their theme parks rather than their core content Walt Disney had originally pioneered. And with their new upcoming Baymax movie being reportedly about a non-binary Michelin man using female sanitary products, I can't really imagine kids are going to be rushing the droves to watch it. Perhaps Disney is going the route of Netflix.
The what? What?
Baymax movie being reportedly about a non-binary Michelin man using female sanitary products, I can't really imagine kids are going to be rushing the droves to watch it. Perhaps Disney is going the route of Netflix, where their ruthless adherence to their investors and money at all costs attitude might now kill the Disney monopoly. Disney, once a company pioneering animation, cartoons, and generating beautiful allegorical stories that would transcend time and generations, is now becoming everything it sought to destroy, a hollowed out, decrepit shell of a company, suing hospices, grieving parents, forcing wokeness amongst the apathetic masses, and supporting genocidal regimes, neglecting stories and entertainment for greed and power, causing the stock price to plummet and fans to become tired and wary of the company, which is why Disney serves as a warning of how all beautiful things eventually become sour.
I am aware. Whoa,
I have a quick important announcement to make.
Guys, I've just awoken. Are you awoken by now?